Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Stephen?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh, yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I am your host, Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is my baseball season, Boston Red Sox. I don't know why he's still wearing a Patriots sweater. Andrew Cabral, how you doing?
You did not have to reveal my fashion of the evening, but thank you anyway.
Well, I like to describe you as much as I can. Our openings, we do them the same way every time, and now I'm trying to change them up a little bit.
No, nice, nice. Just throw the curveball at me. See?
Yeah.
Baseball reference. I can't believe that it is baseball season already because it's still technically March, and I don't associate March with baseball, but apparently that happens every season.
It's getting in right at the end of March this year, so
yeah, when it's still nice and brisk, at least here.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Ironically, I don't have a lot of Boston Red Sox gear to wear during the baseball season.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know. It's very expensive when you live in a big sports market, everything is so expensive because people will buy it no matter what. Because they want to support their local teams. So they just jack up the prices in general. And I feel like it's just gotten more and more unreasonably expensive over the years. A lot of the stuff I have is from like 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. The good thing is when you hit a certain level of adulthood, at least for me, my clothes are always the same size. So it's just like they just last.
I mean, maybe not all the clothes, but
not for everyone.
Usually hats or something like that. That'll be the same, I guess. But
now, how do you feel about fitted hats?
I've not always loved them because they're just I can never get the right one. My head's so large.
You got to get the exact size, but it's got to be the exact size that your head is at that point. And what happens if your head changes size, like you were just saying, Steven?
I don't know. We're going way too long into this.
$60 on something? Well, it is to do with money, and we do spend a lot of money on a lot of things that we probably shouldn't.
We can connect everything through capitalism. We know this.
Well, we could also connect it back to just buying movies in general. And we've got an interview this week with a brand new label. So, more money to be spent on something brand new. And Stephen, who did we have this week for an interview?
Well, of course, he's already cool because he has my first name, and that is Stephen Broomer. He's coming from a new label up in Canada called Black Zero, which I love the title. I love the name of this label, and they are specializing in Canadian cinema that is of the experimental type. A lot of experimental stuff. Psychedelic. They have 3 releases out. That have just been, they're already out for, I believe you can order them now. Strange Codes. I'm doing this off the top of my head because we recorded this interview.
Everything Everywhere Again Alive.
Yes.
Palace of Pleasure and Strange Codes.
Yes.
And you can order them from blackzero.ca, which is the website for the company as well as the catalog. And I think you can find them on other websites, but that seems to be right now the home base for all things Black Zero. Fantastic interview that we just did. Please listen to it. We get into all kinds of stuff. It's very fascinating to discuss kind of the world of avant-garde cinema, art house cinema with someone because it's not
And
something that is a lot of people talk about on in the general conversation.
yeah, and Steven, he's got a long career of doing a lot of different things within this realm, and doing some archiving and doing some restoring. I mean, he's very very heavily involved in the whole process of this this label, not just being like the producer or anything like that. He, like, I believe, restored some things, and he does a lot of the features on these discs, very in
Himself.
depth, yeah,
Yeah.
very in depth features. He's very much, this is very much a labor of love for him. So yeah, please, if you're interested, go support Black Zero, especially on their site. That's where they get most of the money, is if you buy direct. So, but with that said, please enjoy, sit back, relax your ears, and let's listen to this interview with Black Zero's Stephen Broomer. So, with us this week, coming from Canada, is a filmmaker, film preservationist, historian, educator, programmer. The list goes on, and that is Stephen Broomer. How you doing?
Well, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's the pleasure's all ours.
It's double Steven time.
I was gonna say it's great to have another Stephen on the show because now, as you were saying before, Mike being on Mike, we can team up on Andrew.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna jump on you. Even though this is about Stephen and his new label, every once in a while, I'm just gonna unmic you, just whenever I feel like it, just to gang up on you.
Mute. The mute
yeah,
button is there.
It is.
Use
I'm in
it
control. So
liberally.
But Stephen, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and just in general, before we get started, how's everything going?
Oh, everything's going great. Yeah, I mean, exciting times. We've just started the label. We're in week 5 or 6 of being of having our product available, and yeah, everything's going great.
That's great, man. And if nobody knows yet, this new label is called Black Zero. They're out of Canada, and you guys kind of specialize. You focus on experimental films from Canada, and that's the one thing that really drew me to your label because, well, first of all, just the fact that it's focused on Canadian films. Me and Andrew are big fans of the partner label at Vinegar Syndrome, Canadian International Pictures. Love what they're doing there. Loving the films that they're uncovering for us there. And then when I saw your label, which was also focused on Canadian films, but kind of the underground version of that, I was like, dude, this is coming full circle for us.
Yeah.
Like
it's a whole other layer. It's like CIP is discovering like hidden gems within Canadian film history,
kind of narrative features, like like,
and then Black Zero is going even deeper into those archives and unearthing like the underbelly of it all. There's a deeper well of Canadian films than I think we ever knew about.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I think underbelly is right. It's true that these are really niche, and it's a really it's the most extreme kind of niche to have not just a label that's focused around a national cinema, but a kind of formal subset of it. And who knows how much material we'll be able to pump out in the next few years, but I have some projects that are already kind of poised. And from my point of view, although Black Zero has a very long journey, which I'm sure we'll get into, seeing what the guys at CIP were able to do really set a fire under me to get this stuff out here. I think they've just done amazing work with films that, some of them, being someone who studied Canadian film here in Canada, some of them I was quite familiar with. And some of them are really, like you said, hidden gems. So just amazing that this giant, mostly vacant landmass north of America has managed to produce such strange and curious films. And it's so heartening for me as someone who's spent 20 years studying Canadian cinema to see that there's actually an international audience for this stuff.
Yeah, and I think one thing about Canadian cinema, I feel like it's obviously kind of just in general just neglected from cinema history. Like it's not really, we talked about it when we talked with CIP. It's just feels like it just never gets talked about. I think when it comes to Canada, we typically think about the actors and actresses that come from Canada that come into America and like get popular, and that's how we relate to Canada when it comes to the film industry. But when it comes to the films themselves that they produce up there, unless it's an American TV show that goes up to Canada to shoot, we're not like literal Canadian films by Canadian filmmakers is not something we get a lot of, except for maybe like David Cronenberg, who's probably the most popular up there. So it's great that now it feels like with physical media and how it's just exploding right now, that it's allowing us to build a trail to like all these different places that we never really thought about until they appeared. And so
yeah, and I think when we come to things like topics like national cinemas, topics like formal subsets of cinema, we have really great access now to specialized knowledge. Physical media gives us this special bridge to that kind of specialized context. So you can create things that are really exhaustive, and that, if not every viewer out there who acquires a disc of a film is going to want to know everything about it, but now we have the option for that. We've had that option obviously for a long time, but the fact that, we can deal with these kinds of niches to such an extraordinary extent still kind of amazes me.
Oh yeah. And so getting into the label Black Zero, please educate the audience when it comes to kind of the background of the label and how it came about, and also like the name Black Zero. I know the name Black Zero ties in with one of your first releases.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this goes back a ways in sort of my career, because I started to restore films in the mid 2000s. I'm not backed by any kind of institution. I'm usually working in partnerships with institutions in one way or another, or with the generous facilitation of institutions as well. But for the most part, I'm taking on projects that I have an interest in, and so on. And around 2006, I started doing this work. By around 2008, 2009, I had restored about 35 to 40 films. Most of them Canadian student films related to a single project. But then I started to look at other films in the avant-garde that I was interested in, and they started sort of to become added to this roster of films that I could, give public lectures about and present and curate at various forums and so on. The idea of putting out a physical disc, although it was possible then, didn't seem likely to me. At the time, I'm talking about 2009, 2010, certainly we had a kind of a home video marketplace that might have supported that. But it was just so rare to see examples of it moving forward. I mean, we have long histories of experimental film on home video through Mystic Fire Video in the 80s and 90s. You have people like Pip Chodorov and Bruce Posner who have done amazing things with putting out the history of experimental film through Revoir, through Flicker Alley and Kino and so on. But those were exceptions. So around 2014, 2015, I had all of these projects that had accumulated, and really the only way for me to share them with audiences was set up a date at an art gallery, and they really are going to want to show it only when I'm there to give context for it and so on. So it was very rare to see these films. And I sort of made the decision then that I'd like to find a way to put at least a couple of them out on home video. So a friend and I got together and talked about this as formalized as a company. And we started to design things, and we unfortunately started to announce things. But best laid plans, things just kept getting pushed off. Potential forms for revenue, or not revenue, funding kept getting cut off. And it became clear after several years that the only way that this was going to happen was to finance it myself. And I'm a working person. It's not an easy thing to commit to. Despite Canada's great history of Arts Council funding, we don't have arts funding for things like home video labels. So then that we sort of made the commitment that we'd do that around 2019, and then the pandemic happened. And that came with its own host of issues. And so things just got put off and off and off. And that brings us to 2022, 2023. And it finally comes together. We get everything pulled together, and now it's in existence. And to get to the second part of your question, Black Zero as a title is a pretty interesting thing to get around, because it's actually the title of multiple experimental films. From about the same time, mid-1960s, an American filmmaker named Aldo Tambolini creates a multimedia installation called Black Zero that's quite incredible. Once in a while, it still gets staged. Aldo passed away, I think, 2 years ago now. An amazing artist. Around the same time that he did that, John Hofstas makes this film called The Palace of Pleasure, which is the first film I ever preserved. And John was someone I was very close to. I'm sure I'll get into all of that. But basically, Palace of Pleasure was meant to be a kind of omnibus work where you'd have different sequences that represented, various, in his view, they were sort of semi-narrative, semi-impressionistic, psychedelic dream states. And he was able to finish 2 of the 3 intended parts. The first part's called Red Path 25. The second part is called Black Zero. And the third part, which was never finished in his lifetime, is called Resurrection of the Body. So Black Zero, as this kind of beautifully ponderous description of infinity and silence, appealed to me. And I thought, over the years, it picked up other kinds of associations for me, especially around what a reel of film looks like when it's laid out on a core. It looks like this big black zero. There's also the idea of the black zero, that when you see a countdown leader in a film, it gets down to 2 and then solid black. We don't see a 1 and we don't see a 0, and the 0 becomes a kind of a black zero. And so these kinds of metaphors just started floating around in my head, and it seemed to stick as a title for what we were doing.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I thought it was a very clever and just brilliant title for this label, focusing on experimental films. I just thought it was just a really nice touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things I also notice about, you talk about how a lot of this you had to fund it yourself essentially. And one of the key things I notice about these releases, and we'll get into, all these releases a little bit and talk about the films a little bit. But I notice you do a lot, and obviously you do a lot of the features yourself. You edit them, or you do the commentaries, for instance, one of the films, Strange Codes, you literally do a breakdown of the movie that's like 10 times longer than the actual movie.
For those of you interested, the film itself is about 28 minutes. The video essay is an hour and a half. It talk about a breakdown. It gets into the minutia of it all. I mean,
no, but I think that's what's so interesting about your releases so far, is that none of them are very long. They're all within like a little over an hour. The films themselves are not long, but there's this wealth of context and information to go along with them, because this type of cinema is not easy for everybody to get into. And I think you guys do. What I've seen so far, you understand that, and you understand that you have to find a way to translate some of what it is in the film to the audience that maybe needs an introductory. Even for us, we watch a lot of movies, and we've even watched some experimental films, but all these artists have these very interesting interpretations and things that we need help with. We need some, and honestly, like I watched Strange Codes without a commentary, and then I decided in the next couple movies, I was like, I might watch these with the commentary first. Just because I want to kind of hear, and of course time restraints. I have only so much time to watch all this stuff, but I was like, I think it would do me better to hear the commentary and hear kind of what the movie means as I'm watching it. And so, yeah, I thought just the features in this alone were just amazing. Like,
thank you so much.
Yeah, I like the uniformity of the way the releases have gone, in the sense, like, you have the feature, the commentary, and then like similar supplements for each one. Like each one gets a video essay, each one gets the commentary. And the design overall, was that always the intention to kind of have this kind of rubric set up for each release and to kind of fill those spots, or that just happened?
Thank you, Andrew. I'd say that I'd say in some ways it just happened, but it is true that my thinking around this was, to some degree, well, if I'm doing a video essay for this film, I should also do it for that film, and so on. But there is a reason why these films are particularly stacked with features, and why I'm involved in so many of those features, which is that the first 3 releases were always planned to be these films that are particularly close to me, and that loom really large in my own experience of becoming an artist. And for that reason, I have a sort of a sense of personal commitment to them. This was a fairly new experience for me with building some of these kinds of features. For instance, although I'm accustomed to talking about films, and I've written liner notes for revoir discs and so on, I had never recorded a commentary track before. And I happened to do 2 of them at the same time. The one for Palace of Pleasure, and the one and 2 that are on the newest Severin release of I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses, Murray Markowitz's film. And I did them all within about 2 weeks of each other, and they were pretty overwhelming experiences. But I also just have to say, it just afforded so many opportunities to expand on particular details that come up in a film, moving in time, right? And yeah, I mean, my sense is, going forward for the future releases, my plan is always to do video essays, commentaries, bonus films, whatever we can, because this, who knows how long physical media will last. I hope forever. I think I'm a McLuhanist. I think forever. And but there is, like, a particular opportunity right now to be able to put out a film with maximal context. Hopefully not to cut in too much to, say, the quality of the main feature, but if we can put out a 70-minute film like Everything Everywhere Gonna Live, with about 4 hours worth of expanded content, which is what I think it's sitting at, then I think that I've done a service to the film. We've done a service to the film, and to the audience that will discover these films. For me, an awful lot of this is about finding a new audience. These are not films that ever circulated that far. Palace of Pleasure circulated the farthest. And Arthur Lipset, who made Strange Codes, is kind of universally famous, often for the wrong reasons, because he made a film that inspired George Lucas to name the Force, that kind of stuff. I love Star Wars, but you understand what I mean by the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
It's really remarkable. And my sense is that if we can give that kind of context for this kind of work, all the better. Right?
Yeah, the one thing, I guess I want to take it kind of in reverse a little bit. We just talked briefly about how you got into, your career within, restoring films, and how Black Zero became into existence. But I want to go back even further, kind of to your younger days, and kind of how you discovered the avant-garde cinema, and discovered kind of this art house surreal type cinema, because it's not something that I think is readily available when we're younger. It's almost, you have to seek it out, or someone has to show it to you. And there's a whole discovery process, I found, when it comes to this particular cinema. So how did that come about?
Well, that's a wonderful observation, Andrew. It's true that it's often posed as inaccessible in some ways, in addition to the fact that it's just hard to see. I think that a couple of things influenced my ability to navigate it. One is that I'm lucky enough to be born into a big city. I'm living in Toronto my whole life, and we have multiple experimental film screening series that are happening and that have been happening here since the 60s. But I mean, I didn't really discover all of that until I was in my 20s. When I was very young, I was introduced to weird art through my parents. I come from a kind of a free jazz and painting kind of family background, and so I'm doubly privileged in that sense. So I would have seen things like Maya Deren films and Louis Buñuel films when I was pretty young, like 9, 10 years old. And then I also around the same time, my cinephilia was piqued by an amazing late night movie show that used to run out of, and I think it still does, out of Buffalo, called Offbeat Cinema, that would show, Giant Gila Monster, old Roger Corman and Ed Wood films, Herschel Gordon Lewis films, things like that. And so in my mind, all these things became very much these like alternative ways of thinking about life and art. All these films that a mainstream audience, a kind of lowest common denominator mainstream audience, might be inclined to discount when they first see them because they don't look like anything that they're used to, or they have their codes on backwards or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's always what appealed to me, was the idea of finding things that were so idiosyncratic. Like Palace of Pleasure could only have been made by John Hofstas. Glen or Glenda could only have been made by Ed Wood, that kind of thing. And that I followed that since then. And I hate to say that's what brings me to the present, but I had an experience of going to school for filmmaking, and that's where they try to hammer those codes into you and make you unlearn any kind of passion. And I didn't let it sink in. And
I was going to say, it didn't seem like it worked. So
it's me. No, I was too far down the wrong end. I remember being called into a meeting with my faculty mentor when I was an undergraduate, and him asking if I'd seen anything I liked recently. I said that I'd gone to the library and watched Stan Brackage's Anticipation of the Night, and he glowered and rolled his eyes and said, "Oh, they're trying to make you into one of those, aren't they?" Sorry, buddy. I'm already a card carrying one of those. So yeah, no, that's, and then film preservation and finding these things. That's another question too, because I came to make this little career as a film restorationist sort of by necessity. I went into a master's program in film history. I discovered the character of John Hofstas and read some of his writings about aesthetics. He was a very interesting guy, but a very painful and colorful life. He spent the last 25 years of his life as a advocate for the right to die. And he had been a gay rights activist before that. And he had devoted a lot of his life to activism, and also a lot of his life to like mainstream journalism. He was a very complicated guy, a very interesting guy. But I had found him, and I was aware that he had made this film, and I'd read all these things about this film, but I couldn't see it. So I had to track it down, and it was in pieces at a couple of different places, including the National Archives of Canada, but also in a trunk that John had in his basements for 35, 40 years. And we cobbled it back together. So it was necessity more than anything. I had to see the film to be able to talk about it. And then I found that it was a field where I was able to put all the skills I'd developed in film school. If you learn things about color correction, you learn things about handling film materiality, those become very useful in doing this kind of work. And then, from there, I could even say just about the other two projects at hand. I read about Keith's film, Everything Everywhere Live, before I started to work on it. I read about it before I saw it. And then with Lipsit's film, it results from a very long engagement I have with Lipsit's work. I've written a book about Lipsit that should be out sometime next year.
Oh wow, that's good. I yeah, just looking at knowing, what the little bit I know about him, knowing that this was his last film, Strange Codes, and he had suffered from mental illness and things like that, but he had this whole career before that I don't know about. So knowing that you got a book coming out about him is exciting. That'll be nice to take a look at. Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful films. They're all very short, and most of them are far more accessible than Strange Codes.
Okay. All right. But yeah. So just to give everybody, and I know you said you went to film school, and learn some stuff about film. So give us a little bit more of a little bit of an overview of some of the other things that you do as professions that led from your time, your education that you got.
Yeah, no, sure, of course. So yeah, when I was in school, I was mainly interested in making documentary films. They, thank God, have not survived. Very small. And around 2010 or so, I was doing a PhD. I was, in need of some sense of uh, both direction and calm in my life, and so I decided I'd go back to making films, little intimate 16 millimeter films, experimental films, the kinds of films that I had been restoring and studying, and so on. And so a lot of what I was doing as a critic, as a writer, was informing my practice, and vice versa. So the more time you spend with that kind of technology, the better one can talk about it, right?
Exactly, I agree. Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and that I've continued to do through the years. My films went from being little intimate films to being longer and more substantial. Around 2017, I started to make a 1 hour long 16 millimeter film per year, which is how I've spent the pandemic as well. And I don't think that I managed to pull one off for 2022, but maybe this year. And then, during the pandemic, I started to make video essays, which seemed to me to be like kind of a perfect collision of the things that I had devoted myself to. So I started a series in 2021 called Art and Trash. The episodes tend to range from 15 to 45 minutes. Most of them are around 15 minutes. That deals with these kinds of uncodified outsider kinds of movies, like I was talking about earlier. So sometimes I'll do like a Findley film, and then I'll do something really more avant-garde. I've done about 25 episodes of that. Some of those video essays are the basis for the video essays that are on this disc.
Yeah.
On these discs, and out of that work, I also started to do video essays in collaboration with Kayla Janice for
Nice.
Severin releases. So I worked with her on the Out of the Blue release that Severin did, on one of the entries in the House of Psychotic Women box, and we've kept up this collaboration, which has been kind of wonderful. Just because she's a genius.
We did an award show for physical media, and we gave her a little award that we had Sergio Mims, the passing of Sergio Mims. We did a memorial award for him, and gave the first one to her, and she's just a rock star.
Yeah.
In our field, in the physical media realm, she just kills it. And just everything, just just film criticism, analysis. She's just so great.
Yeah. So that that's been a big part of what I've been doing, is the collaborations with her and my own series, and I'm available to do more for this. Nice. Love doing them.
Now, I was just going to ask, is any of your, other than obviously the physical discs here and special feature work on the other productions, products, things. Can anyone see any of your work, or is that more like kind of you just keep it personal to yourself?
It's all online. It's always been
Okay.
public facing online work. It's
I thought since you were promoting yourself, you might as well just tell everybody where all your stuff is.
I'm sorry, Andrew, you're right. Yeah, it's all on Vimeo on a channel called Art and Trash. And yeah, there should be about 25 episodes up there, about what it adds up to 12 or 13 hours of material. If any listeners aren't sick of my voice by the end of this, then you can spend another 12 or 13 hours with it.
I was gonna say, dude, what are you talking about? You got a nice smooth voice.
It's very smooth. That's
Yeah.
smooth jazz.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man. I mean, that's fantastic. I really wish I would have been able to have more time to actually watch some of your own personal films, because I did take a look at. I was looking at one of your trailers, and it looked really interesting. I am going to take a look at some of that stuff. Because I mean, I'm very interested in experimental films, because they just, we talked about this. We had Chris O'Neill on a few weeks ago,
Chris very well.
Yeah, and he did some films, and we watched his, and I just love the one thing I feel like is so great about experimental filmmaking is even watching your films, your 3 films that have been released, it's almost kind of like, in a sense, it's almost like a way of going back to silent films in a way. It's a lot of it's very purely visual, and but it's also, emoting. You have to, in silent film, they had to emote a lot through just visuals. And I think that's also, obviously there's audio involved in a lot of these experimental films, but I feel like a lot of it's about visuals. And I think that's a part of cinema that, in a lot of mainstream cinema gets neglected, the visual language that's going on in film, and, trying to decipher things. And of course, experimental film takes it to a whole other level, where sometimes what's going on might not be so clear on any kind of viewing that you have, and that you kind of need help, like with what you've done with your features for these films, and I just love that it just taps into something that's very pure, about film, the visuals themselves. And
thank you, Stephen. I think you've tapped into something really important there, which is this relationship we have to silent cinema. Well, the people who were making silent films, many of them, especially the most challenging and exploratory of them, they were learning codes, they were starting codes of cinema. So much of what we see from the mainstream, which I love, is so codified that we know where to be looking. It tells us where we need to look and everything like that. But with experimental films, much like George Méliès films, or Germain Dulac films, or even D.W. Griffith making films that his producers didn't think audiences would understand because they had close-ups in them. They sort of they're all adventures of perception in a way that so many commercial mainstream fiction films just can't be anymore, because they operate according to these visual codes of continuity editing and all that. And I mean, I love those films. I think they can accomplish so much, and I don't mean to generalize about any kind of cinema, because we can't. But I think at their best, experimental films do get into something that's like a kind of primordial perception that silent cinema gave us. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah. It's a lot about it, for me so far. My experiences with experimental cinema, a lot of it is it goes beyond even just visuals. It's about a lot of the films I've watched, they create a feeling, like like you gain, feelings from it. I mean, just I believe it was the beginning of Everything Everywhere Again Alive. That the sound at the beginning, where he's making the sound, and I was just listening to it. I was like, there's something eerie about the sound. There's like it making me feel a little uneasy. I don't know if that was its intention, but it was just like, I was just like, it's like, and that, and that is the other part of it, is like the sound element of a lot of experimental films, especially with Chris's work that we were talking to him about. Like So sound elements, a lot of experimental films are very key, and they really can make you feel in some interesting ways. Like, yeah, it's really something that you have to be, I think, in the right place for. It's not, experimental cinema is something you have to ease your way into, I think. And I think this is these releases that you have here, and if we haven't said all the release titles here, we should. We have Everything Everywhere Again and Alive. We have Palace of Pleasure and Strange Codes. And I think with all these releases, do you think these are? I know you said that they're personal favorites of yours. Do you believe these are good opening? If people are trying to get into experimental films, that these are great kind of starters?
I think these are the kinds of films that, if you encountered them in a theater without knowing anything about them, and you were in the right receptive mind space for them, all three of them could do something to your perception that is unique to each, but it's also kind of a cohesive project. They're films in which language plays a very minimal role. They're films that have puzzling, dazzling visuals, all of them. I mean, one could say that of the three of them, Everything Everywhere Again Alive is the most like a documentary. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a documentary about it's a documental, diaristic film about a commune.
Yes.
But it's doing all these weird things. You observed the sound, but there are all these things also about these kind of logograms that float through the image, right? There's these like weird etchings and solid colors used as buffers and interruptions.
Yeah, I was going to say the transitional color buffers. I was watching the interview with Keith on there. That you had the filmmaker do a couple of the features where they go back to the lake and the commune and kind of check it out in present day, more closer to present day, and also you did like an interview with him and just getting his it's just invaluable stuff, getting his perspective on the whole film. And just, it's even, that's why I say it's so important that stuff's in this, because I think for a lot of people, they might watch these movies and maybe not, it might not stick with them because they're not on its level. And I think that the features really can bring you to its level and make you understand the films in a whole other way that could maybe make you a fan of experimental cinema. I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my goal with the bonus features is to make sure that they make the work more accessible. In the case of all three of these films, they can be incredibly challenging. They aren't for everybody. Not everyone's going to feel the signals they're sending out. But when people do see them and they're curious about them, I want to make sure that they're able to find out whatever they need to find out. In the case of Everything Everywhere Again Alive, I think that it's really important that and I'm not trying to congratulate myself by saying this, but I think it's really important that we spend as much time with Keith, the filmmaker, and Tom, who started the commune, who's in that documentary we made. And because this is a film that's a record of a particular kind of experience. It's the kind of experience that you can only have if you divorce yourself totally from technology and go out into the woods for years and experience nature as sunrise and sunset and, chopping wood and carrying water. It is a hypnotic experience in that way. It's sort of like going on a day-long walk. It's really, it's like that. And the film is a means of holding on to that experience. But the film is, 50 years old next year. And these guys, who are the picture of health, and I hope they'll be with us forever, being able to record their sense of what the film is, what it's about, what they were trying to do out there in building this kind of utopia. I think that in itself is something that we don't get immediately just from the experience of watching the film. And it's something that I hope enhances the experience for some people who want to engage with the topic further than just the film.
Yeah, I think it's also, you say that how long ago that film was made and bringing them back to talk about it. It shows you how important it was for them to make that film, because they remember it. They remember it in such great detail for that much time to have passed, and still still means that much to them to be able to talk about it that well. Because some people, and I've heard this from people that create features, that sometimes you get somebody that's involved in something from many years ago, and then you ask them about, hey, could you talk about this movie? And they're like, I don't really remember that. Like, they don't remember much about working on that project. And it's like, but to get them to come back and be able to really talk about it is shows a lot to how much that means to them, that not only that you're restoring the film and you're putting it out for more people to see it, but that it's that it's that important to them. That this takes it a step further. I'm sure it's really important to them that you did this.
I was just gonna ask, what type of reaction did you get when, like, you obviously, I'm assuming you approached them to, I don't know if you had to ask for permission or just ask in general, like, hey, we're putting this out on Blu-ray, and 50 years after it came out, do you want to talk about it?
Well, the project was a full collaboration with Keith, so he was involved the whole way along. In many, he led certain processes of it. We shared others, and the people who are being interviewed in the documentary, the people who appear in the documentary, are like his oldest friends. He's known them for half a century, and the film was important to all of them, and the place was important to all of them. So, I mean, we certainly asked for permission. We didn't feel we had to, really, because it was such a family gathering kind of event. But we made sure that everyone was kind of comfortable with our presence there, and I think they've been very keen about the idea that the film is out there in the world. I mean, even though it's a very intimate film and it depicts them in the midst of these tumultuous times in their lives, they've been so happy that people want to see it.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the things that I'm proudest of about the disc is the liner notes, which we got this wonderful Canadian artist, Anna Gronau, to write. And Anna had actually been the person who was instrumental in bringing all these artists out to this commune. She was the bridge for Keith and the Anderson brothers and other people who turn up in that film to come out there. And I think her liner notes do a wonderful job of acknowledging the kind of the successes and failures and the strange times of that experience.
Yeah. And so I would say, I don't know about Andrew. I didn't really get a chance to talk to Andrew about all what we all felt about these three films. But I would say, out of the three, I want to talk about Palace of Pleasure, because I feel like that one stuck with me the most. And yeah, I know you've spoke a little bit about the director, John Hofstede. I can't ever say. Yeah, I can't say people's names. That's my thing on the show. But I just. I kind of got it, yeah. But it really stuck with me. I thought that the visuals were just amazing. Like, the two sections, the split screen, and kind of pairing it with the images of wartime. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was, it's one of them things where I didn't get a chance to go too deep into all the features. I did watch. I saw that you had another one of his films on here. One of his lost films, the Columbus of Sex.
It's a recreation of well, not really a recreation. It's a kind of speculative recreation of a section of Columbus of Sex. Okay. In some ways I feel bad because I wish we could have the original, but it's whereabouts is unknown. I suspect it's in the lockup at the Hamilton Police Department. It is a banned film.
Okay.
Him and Ivan Reitman and Dan Goldberg went on trial for it in 1970.
Oh, wow.
That's they were his producers. The guys who made The Hangover produced The Columbus of Sex for John
Nice. Where's that biopic movie? Where's that movie? I want to see that.
It's a pretty compelling story. It was the subject of my first book, their trial. It's a bizarre, one of the major cases in the history of Canadian censorship.
Okay, I might have to.
I was just gonna say, I don't think people in modern times, younger generations, realize that for a good while in the 20th century, a lot of films were banned, banned from exposition, banned from showings anywhere, and it was illegal for you to see some of these, to the point where if you were in some underground theater somewhere, you could be arrested. The police would raid if you were watching a certain movie. That's just kind of a mind-blowing aspect to think about for today's audiences, I think.
I could blow your mind some more, Andrew, and say that I believe that The Columbus of Sex is still a banned movie, so
Oh my
perhaps we
goodness.
could all be arrested for watching.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh
And
no.
my message to the Hamilton police is, come at me, I dare you.
Oh yes, please,
I mean,
please. Can we do a second podcast from the cell?
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It'll be like, yeah,
Be
live
like,
from inside of the prison cell where we watched a movie.
yeah, like Johnny
Uh,
Cash, like Johnny Cash.
It's
But
it's a bizarre story too, because the film itself, from everything that we know about it, from the pieces I've been able to reconstruct from the trial testimony, it was a relatively timid film. It wasn't like Flaming Creatures or something. It wasn't something that would really shock and appall people in, I don't know, cinephiles and big city audiences wouldn't wince at it. But for some reason, in a small town in Ontario, it really provoked the Vice Squad, and they felt that it was, essentially
I would say that seems like often the case in a lot of those situations where things are banned. There's almost a hyperbole, a build-up, and over-exaggeration of the harm that it's doing, or what it's actually depicting. And it's done to kind of, I say, propagandize the scandalous nature of it all, where, in another context, it's probably not that scandalous. For me, when it always comes to the, censorship and all those things, it's an interesting footnote, not even footnote, it's part of cinematic history, because there's been censorship in every single kind of area here in the US, Canada. Of course, we talked about in England with the video nasties. Stephen, what's the category 3 films?
Cat 3 films in Japan or China.
In Asia, in China and all that area, and Hong Kong. And it's like every place seemed to have those type of things put in place at one point. And I feel like from a modern perspective, it's so odd because we have access to so much of that stuff that 20, 30, 40 years ago was banned. It's now getting like beautiful Blu-ray releases and deluxe packaging and all that kind of stuff, where like years ago you couldn't see it if you tried.
Yeah, I wish I could get in a time machine and go back and be like, here you go.
Yeah, I know. Here you
just
go.
give it to the people that want to see
your
it.
Mind.
Here you go. But one of the features I wanted to bring up that I did watch from the Palace of Pleasure disc was the Looking Cure.
Yes,
and because I really love the idea that this film, that the director he looked at this film as being kind of like a therapy. I love the idea that he had this idea that cinema could be therapy, because that's something I've thought about for a long time, that film can be something that can really be good for your mental health if looked at in the right way. I think it's good for my mental health. I get it's things that put it, depending on what I'm watching, can put me at ease and put me in the right mind space and make me feel reassured about myself, depending on the film I watch. And like, I thought that was a fascinating look into somebody trying to do something for good, using film. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and the film itself is so bright. I was just gonna say, Steven, both Stevens actually. The film itself is so psychedelic and so trippy, I guess is the colloquial word for it. And it's just the whole time I was watching, I was like, I felt like this would be screened with Andy Warhol back in the 70s. And of course that was brought up in the video essay. So I was like, oh, I was on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, John's whole idea of dual screen environmental filmmaking, in a sense, comes from Warhol. It comes from not just, it predates Chelsea Girls, but it comes from something that Warhol did before that. In around 65, he did this thing called the Exploding Plastic Inevitable. It was a multimedia happening. You'd go into this space, and he would be playing his films on multiple projectors, and he would also have stroboscopic light shows and things like that. You'd have the Velvet Underground playing on a stage. You'd have the Warhol Factory people dancing, and you'd also have like Motown records playing at half speed or double speed or something. And it was meant to be a kind of sensory overload. And of course, the thing that really distinguishes John from Warhol is that there's a sense in Warhol of kind of electric tribe declaration, like this is us, we're here, this is contemporary life. But it doesn't have any pretenses about healing you. And if anything, it wants to do the opposite. It wants to mess you up. And John, I think, was in many ways, through much of his life, he was quite tormented. And his ideas about therapy come from a lot of post-Freudian ideas in the 60s, the most colorful of which, and I think probably the most relevant to what he did, is a guy named Wilhelm Reich, who designed these boxes, these metal boxes that he called orgone accumulators. He believed that orgones, a term he coined, were a kind of neurotic energy in the universe that caused lots of different problems, including sexual anxieties and cancer. And so he designed these boxes that people would sit in to accumulate their orgones, to release their orgones. And it's like grade A quackery, but done by a guy who was actually a kind of beautiful genius who had studied with Freud and had written incredibly important books about the human mind. And it got him landed in prison. He pulled that shit. And I gotta say, I think he did it very sincerely, very earnestly. I think he legitimately believed in orgone therapy, but he pulled that shit in America, and the FDA went after him and threw him in jail. Because you can't peddle a fake cancer cure, right? And I think that what John felt he was doing was something like using cinema as an orgone accumulator. We were supposed to watch this film and it casts a kind of spell over us. We participate in this seance and it draws out all of our neurosis. How? Well, it presents us with images that are alternately calming and provocative. It shows us scenes of pain, war, domestic violence, but it also shows us this, like, the flatness of advertising and this weird illusory hallucinatory depths of kaleidoscopes. And I think that idea of tearing us between those two experiences is what John felt was therapeutic about this kind of form. And what cinema could offer is like what we were talking about earlier, that creation of a kind of a space we can enter into that has the potential to change us. And I think cinema can do this in lots of different ways and in lots of different forms. But for John, it was very much about that, like, hypnotic experience.
Yeah, and I honestly, I did. I think I felt like at times I did fall under the spell of the movie. I really did. The best I could, when I got a baby in the room. Sometimes the baby was watching too, so she was like, I could look over at times and she was like watching. I was like
mesmerized.
Do you like this? But and then we got the third film, which is the one it was the first one I watched, and it was the one I was the most had the hardest time kind of grasping, and I think that it's kind of in the title there, Strange Codes. Like it's not a film that's easy to decipher, because I don't know that it really can be. I mean, you break the movie down, but
I will also say, even though I break the movie down, I point some directions out that we can use to interpret it, but I'm not sure it's decipherable. I don't think it was designed to be decipherable either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember you saying that, and yeah, it's a film that's essentially, people kind of describe it as being incoherent. It's not something that can really be understood, except for, maybe not even the director understood it. I don't know.
I think he understood what he was doing, but I'm not sure that the things that he was signaling to the audience were captured by the audience. I think there's like a weird breakdown in communication. It took me a very long time of working through his journals, and what he used to do is, and you see some of this in the movie, he used to make these amazing giant poster boards with notes and lists and scraps torn out of magazines. I think early on in the film you see one of these and it has like a strip torn off of a poster of Qui-Gon,
Yes.
of the priest with the tattoos on him, and all of these things for him I think were really purposeful, just like how I think when he turns himself into an archaeologist, he's like giving us these little hints as to what he's supposed to be. But because he doesn't come out and tell us, it leaves us at a disadvantage. I mean, I will never tell anyone that I saw this film and immediately understood what he was doing, because it was years of going through his journals and thinking about it to really even grasp a little bit of what it means. And like, if people tell me, well, I'm not up for that challenge, I'm going to say, yeah, I get it. I wish I hadn't been.
I was going to say, without what you're providing on this disc, feature wise, I think people would have a hard time, like, even thinking about, investing in buying, like if you were just giving them the movie and they bought it, I feel like there could be some mad people. They're like, I wanted to get an experimental film and I watched this movie. I don't know what the hell's going on. And there's no way for me to understand this movie. But what you do, and like I said, on this disc, like there is literally a breakdown of this movie. It's an hour and a half long. And the movie itself is only about 20 minutes, almost 20 minutes long. It's like really, you just really take it down to the every shot and really just, helps you translate the movie in some way so that you can invest yourself even more. And I think that that's important. Like that's something where I think if you're a cinephile that wants to really, if you really care about your education.
You're reading my mind. Cause I was saying like each of these releases, now that I think about it, is almost a lecture in a film course in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not only the films themselves, preserved, remastered and looking better than ever, each getting new restorations and all that kind of stuff, but you're also providing an educational system around it to deliver the film in a way we don't see with very many other releases. I mean, we're fortunate enough that in the boutique label world that seems to be the case more often than not, but sometimes you just get the movie and not very much else in terms of contextual information that could be helpful or could be interesting. Most of that stuff you kind of have to seek out on your own. I know, I'm thinking, 10, 12 years ago when we had, bare bones DVD releases of a lot of, I would say, just Hollywood classic films and older films that you really didn't get enough information about. And it was always the information from the special features that I found was the most interesting part of it all, because they would always deliver useful information, insightful information, or even just fun information that's just entertaining. The characters and the people you would meet would be just enriching. And you see a lot of the names pop up over and over again. And I'm now going on a rant now, but I don't even know what I was saying. I'm just saying that each of the releases for each of these films feels like something that would be covered in a film course, which I think is kind of what Stephen was going down when he said academic.
Well, I didn't say I hadn't said that. You said that.
But
yeah, sure. That's another word for it, definitely. But it's
I appreciate that. We should leave the A word out of this. I have a.
You know what? Now that I say it, that's a dirty word.
Academia.
Yeah, you're not the only one who's come on here and has rebuffed the idea of academia being involved in movies and cinema. And we talked a lot about how academia kind of, undermines a lot of the greatness in cinema because it has an ego about it.
It likes to put labels on things as being the best and the worst, and what you should watch and what you can't. It
likes to limit people's perceptions of what is good cinema, what is great cinema, what you should be seeing, what you shouldn't be seeing. Kind of like you was saying earlier when you visited, that academic advisor, and he was like, "Oh, you're one of them," and it's like, Yeah, but the stuff I'm watching is good. You know, something is interesting, and maybe you shouldn't be so snuffy about this. You
Yeah,
know?
no, I agree with you, though I would say that kind of canon building is something that people are guilty of all over the world
Mm.
and far outside of academia too. I mean, I'd say that's like the original critical project is best and worst dressed lists or something. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, I want to respond to this thing that you had said earlier, Andrew, that I thought was really wonderful about the um, the possibilities that are opened up by these bonus features. You know, you described it as being like a lecture, and I appreciate that. But and I know what you mean by that. But I would also say that like we're so lucky now that we can have Blu-ray discs that prioritize the voices of makers as well. You know, the fact that we were able to do the Everything Ever Again live disc is like a collaboration with Keith, where he's doing his own commentary track. No moderator, it's him, and he has this interview. You know, no interruptions. It's actually like a solid 45 minutes of this astonishing mind at work. Um, and you know, it's true what you were saying that that hasn't always been the case with home media. It's something that was often the case with the original boutique label of Criterion,
Yeah.
but so seldomly have we seen you know studio releases that would prioritize these kinds of things. I remember back in the day, the best you could hope for on a DVD could be something like an isolated music score, and you know what I don't like to live in regrets, but I would say like what a missed opportunity for so much of cinema history when we could have had a John Ford film or an Alfred Hitchcock film filled to the brim with contextualizing information, video essays, etc. We've had that sometimes, but not always, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I guess just that it was not something that was thought about enough yet. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the technology wasn't all the way there yet.
Mm.
When it came to the, what we were presenting our films on, and maybe that just helped. It limited our scope of what we wanted to do. But one thing I wanted to bring up about you know the specifically the strange codes, like the breakdown, that I loved, and it's one thing it's typically an issue with me when it comes to anything that's like a commentary or something like that. Like typically with commentaries, I don't love commentaries where they're literally just describing what's on the screen.
Yeah.
But in this case, like I think it's really important that the things that are being done on the screen are being described and being kind of, to the nth degree kind of talked about and explained. And I think it really is important for this type of film that you have that type of commentary or kind of video essay or thing where it's really describing what's going on. It's essential, I think. And so that's where, I have to broaden what I like about, because I've talked about before, like commentaries that are just kind of, just kind of looking at, just describing what you look at. It bothers me usually,
Oh,
but
sure.
in this case, I
Totally
loved it.
deviant thing. But with something like this, it's that
Yeah.
there are so many details happening in the image that escape our attention.
Yeah.
That describing them becomes like interpreting them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's a revelation. You're listening and you're watching, and when something's explained, it becomes in the moment learning experience, not something you have to ruminate about later, and try to figure it out and drive yourself crazy trying to figure it out later, especially without having any kind of education about the thing itself. But when you listen to it, watching it and with that commentary and it's kind of being explained to you, that's why I just went over to a commentary when I was watching some of these movies, because I was like, I want to be able to kind of understand this a little bit as I'm so that we can talk about it. And like, yeah, very, very rewarding, I think, to get that information. And but moving forward, like you said, this label's very young, just coming out of the gate. What's I guess the timeline for anything moving forward with anything else?
So, thank you for asking. Because of our long, long delay in getting started, I have a lot of projects in the pipeline for it, but I don't like to say too much about them until they're ready to ship.
Yeah.
Just because we announced a couple of things early on, and one thing in particular, which I'm not going to mention here, is a really exciting set that we'd like to do, but that's very complicated to do for all kinds of reasons. And by announcing it early on, I still get weird letters from people, like, kind of who are angry that it's not out yet.
Oh man.
And so I've decided to sort of not announce things till they're ready to ship. But I will say this: we're working right now on 3 projects that we're hoping will come out in somewhere in the spring, summer, and then 3 more projects we'd like to get out by the end of the year. So
nice.
I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get some more projects out sooner than later. But if we only do 3 more this year, I'll be happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough when you're starting a new label. It's not, you want to. I think what we've seen so far with just the presentation of it, I intend to buy. For me personally, I'm going to tell you right up front, I definitely want to get Palace of Pleasure. That's one that I really connected with, and I want to be able to invest it on a disc level, and get the disc quality and get more into them features. But just it's what I've seen so far from the photos, the look of the booklets, the covers, the cases themselves all look really nice. So I think you did a great job at the presentation part of because of physical media. That's what it is. I mean, holding it in your hands and putting it on your shelf, and that's part of the experience for us collectors. And I think that everything so far is looking really nice, and I just can't wait to see what else I can discover. That's the whole point.
Thank you so much.
But Andrew, anything else before we wrap it up?
Just, I guess, some extra marketing stuff, if you will. Where can people find these discs if they want to buy it, if they want to support the label? More info.
Thank you so much, Andrew. The best place to buy them, in my opinion, is from me at www.blagzero.ca. That said, shipping costs being what they are, we have been dealing with wholesalers, so the discs should be available this week from both Orbit DVD in North Carolina and from Diabolic DVD in New Jersey. So absolutely, please do support our wonderful wholesalers as well. If any of your listeners happen to be in Canada, or specifically in Toronto, we also have them at Bay Street Video, kind of local heroes of home media. There are lots of ways to get them. And I'm forgetting, of course, if anyone is in Europe looking for them, despite the fact that they mistakenly say Region A on the back, they are actually all region discs, and they are also going to be available from Revoir, from their boutique. So that's a lot of information to throw at you.
That's
we
good.
have it.
We have savvy listeners, I think.
Oh, we do. They know, they hear, they listen. So if anybody ever wants to reach out to you personally, what's the best way?
Well, emailing info@blagzero.ca comes straight to me. We're a very small company. At this point, there's one of us.
All right. Well, that's easy enough.
That's easy enough.
So, Stephen, thank you for joining us, man. This was really great.
Thank you so
it was
much.
very educational, and looking at your releases and discovering some of these new films here really excite me about what's going forward for opening up more cinema to people. I mean, it's really important what you're doing, not only for the preservation, because we support any preservation of any kind of film, even if we don't like it. Like it's important to have the whole history and not just part of the history.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So thank you for what you do, and good luck to all the future releases. Hope it all goes well for you.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Andrew. I appreciate that.
And welcome back here we are. And I don't think we said it at the top. We're at spy number 92.
We are. Spy number 92. We've completely forgot to put that in the intro. I guess this is the intro after the intro after the interview. But yeah, we are on 92 and episode 100 is on the horizon. Stephen does all the mapping for all of this, so he knows the timeline a lot better than I do.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing something special for spy number 100, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I have ideas. I got to cement them, and then you'll hear about it soon. It maybe by next episode you'll hear something concrete about what episode spy number 100 will be. So till then, let's just talk Blu-ray announcements.
Yes,
not a ton of stuff.
No, it's a quiet week, very quiet. I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time I've said this, or many people have thought this, but thank goodness for Vinegar Syndrome for coming in and having their, preview sales to upcoming sales, because this week they've got
their teaser trailers to the teaser trailers.
They've got their halfway to Black Friday preview sale going on, I guess.
Yeah.
And luckily they dropped a couple of announcements that we're going to get into later on in the show. But if it wasn't for that, this would be a very, very, very much shorter show. But let's get into some stuff. Yeah, of course. I guess first up is Severin is working on some new restorations, not only for upcoming Blu-rays, but also for theatrical exhibition as well. And they've got 3 films that they're working on: Morgiana, The Ninth Heart, and Bakaneko, A Vengeful Spirit. Wow. And it looks like, these are going to be in the theaters as well as upcoming Blu-ray releases later on this year.
All right. And it looks like, okay, so the first 2 films, Morgiana and The Ninth Heart, are by the same director, Georgiu Hertz. I believe this is a Czech, a
Czechoslovakian film from 1972, and then The Ninth Heart is a Czechoslovakian film from 1979. And these will be premiering, I think. Yeah, they will make their debut on the big screen at the Salem Horror Fest next month. So that's really cool.
And then the last film is by a director, Yoshihiro Hishikawa, from Japan, 1968. So I don't know anything about these directors, but I heard a little bit of buzz. People seem to be kind of excited about these. So
I mean, I have a feeling that we're going to get into a lot of these when they're officially announced on Blu-ray later on this year. I could tell you that A Vengeful Spirit is getting a 2K restoration from Severin Films. The name Ishikawa, seems kind of familiar to me, but there could be just, many people with that name. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that.
No, because I'm looking up his name, and it's like it's not giving me what I'm looking for here. Because there are apparently many people with the name Ishikawa in IMDb. So it's like, oh, thank you for not saving my butt this time.
I tried looking for stuff on him too, and I couldn't find anything.
There are many people with the exact same name.
Yeah. So good luck with that. But moving on, we also got another bit of news here from the BFI. There's going to be a kind of full-on kind of big project going on with Powell and Pressburger's projects. Many different things that include creating some literature material, new restorations, just a big project that includes a lot of different work that the BFI is going to do with their stuff. So there's not like a ton of details on what it's going to all be, but it does say it's going to include things that have kind of already been, worked on before, like The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, I Know Where I'm Going, A Matter of Life and Death, Black Narcissus, Red Shoes, The Tales of Hoffman, are all films that look like they're getting new kind of work being done on them in some way. I mean, I'm a big fan of Powell and Pressburger. I mean, it's not a complaint at all, but it's kind of interesting that some of these same films are getting brought up that we've kind of already gotten, many releases for.
Oh yeah, these films are already going through extensive restoration processes throughout like the last 40 years. A lot of it because of Martin Scorsese and his certain restoration and conservation foundations and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting how much further they can push the whole restorations of it all. I know just off the top of my head, they just put out the 4K UHD of The Red Shoes. Criterion did.
Yeah.
And that had, I believe, a new restoration on there. At least I hope it did. I probably should actually look to see if it did. I was looking over here to see if I had it, but I think it's someplace else. But give me more of this as you can. But this is kind of seeming like a more like wide ranging project. Like it's not just going to be, theatrical exhibition. It's not going to just be Blu-rays, but apparently it's going to be there's going to be new books about it, like coffee table books and things with like hundreds of pictures and all kinds of cool stuff like that. But it looks like this is going to be something that's running from the middle of October towards the end, then going straight to the end of the year, specifically in the UK. That's where a lot of these will be theatrically exhibited. I think they did a similar program like this with Alfred Hitchcock back in 2012, where they just went back and restored like all of Hitchcock's British work from his early catalog, basically the stuff he did in the 20s and 30s before he came over to Hollywood, and they just did all of that. So this is similar to that, and that was done by the BFI as well. So they're just doing it with another set of like legendary British filmmakers and Michael Pollan and Emmett Pressburger. I would say to those of you out there who have not seen their work, or just heard of them and then just don't know where to start or anything like that, just kind of throw yourself in. Really, I started with The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, which may not be the best place to start because it's a long film.
I was gonna say that's not the best start. I think maybe
Black Narcissus,
Matter of Life
Parallel.
Matter of Life and Death is probably
Matter of Life and Death is a beautiful, gorgeous
start.
movie.
But I was gonna say if there was a film that I would like a nice new restoration, 49th Parallel is one.
That only has a DVD release, at least here.
I got a Blu-ray from another. I got
I think there's a Blu-ray overseas.
And then the other one is, this isn't this is just Michael Powell, but Peeping Tom needs a nice update.
Yeah, what's crazy is that movie got a Blu-ray release years ago.
Studio Canal.
From Studio Canal. I was just gonna say who the company was, and we've gotten nothing here from that.
That's a movie that needs a 4K. Like we need the 4K.
At this point, might as well. If
that's what I'm saying.
Rolling with those, because that Peeping Tom Blu-ray that I just mentioned, it was actually from Optimum Home Entertainment, and that was a 50th anniversary edition that came out in 2010.
Yeah.
So we're approaching.
63 years.
60 years. 65 years would be what, 2025?
Yeah.
I think at this point. So that's something that's got to be on the horizon. Once upon a time, there was a DVD release through the Criterion of that movie, and that's been long out of print. Yeah. I think that was out of print even before I started collecting Criterions in like 2010, 2011. So so that would be something. I don't know if they could ever reacquire the rights since they already have so much of their work. I don't know what the holdup is with that. Lo and behold, we say that, and I bet you Kino will put that out. I got that feeling.
I don't know.
You never know. I saw the other day. Speaking of which, we're going to get to Kino a little sometime soon. But they posted about it. We talked about the Robert Mitchum film, Night of the Hunter, getting a 4K release. So they posted, of course, on their social media, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. On Twitter, somebody commented saying, I'll just wait for Criterion to put it out. And then the Kino replied back, we own the 4K rights, and we're never giving them up. I was like, oh, so that's how those things work. We got confirmation that The reason why they can put these out in 4K is because they scoop up the 4K rights, which we've kind of assumed all along. But it's just an interesting clapback to someone who probably doesn't know how these things work. There's not going to be a 4K Criterion of Night of the Hunter probably ever, at least not in the foreseeable future, as long as Kino's around. They're holding on to that as much as they can. I just thought that was an interesting connection. But yeah, so that's happening through the BFI. I guess speaking of Kino, we can go to Kino now.
Sure.
Why not? I mean, they've only got a few things coming out. They've just more stuff that we've kind of already talked about that they're confirming now. The film noir, The Dark Side of Cinema, volume 14 is now confirmed for May 30th of this year, and you're getting it's usual 3-film set. These films range from 1950 to 1957. We've got The Undercover Girl from 1950, One Way Street from 1950, and an Appointment with a Shadow from 1957. I think that last film is the one that's getting a 2K master. We're getting new commentaries on The Undercover Girl as well as One Way Street, and then a new commentary with Appointment with a Shadow as well. So new commentaries, new restoration. But yeah, we're up to 14 now. These just keep on going.
I'm so behind.
Oh, same here.
Yeah,
same here. I'm just so far behind. It's
but luckily
ridiculous.
they don't seem to really go out of print. So
no, the only one that I think that's ever really gone out of print has been
the first one.
Volume 1, and they reprinted it.
And then they reissued it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it sells that well that they just keep making them. But the next thing we got is kind of another big 4K, and of course more Burt Reynolds. We are getting the original Longest Yard from 1974, getting a 4K scan from the 35 miller original negative. Yeah, I mean, this is a big one here. I think, finally a Burt Reynolds movie I'm interested in buying
or familiar with,
or even familiar with. Yeah.
Would you say? Yeah, this is coming out May 16th.
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting a new audio commentary by Elaine Silver and James Orsini. We're also, I'm pretty sure this was announced a while ago, maybe sometime last year, or maybe even earlier than that. I'm not sure, but
maybe
we're finally getting details on it. This is a fascinating release. Did you read the details on this?
Not really, no.
Yeah, there's a triple layered 100 gigabyte UHD disc and then a dual layer BD50. That's just technical talk for like the discs are big. The discs can hold a lot. Right. The discs can hold a lot. I just find it interesting because usually even UHD discs aren't 100 gigabytes. Yeah. I just thought that was interesting for this release. So maybe they have been. They usually like 75, I think.
Such a nerd.
I know. Maybe I'm just talking out of nowhere, but yeah, that's The Longest Yard, the classic Burt Reynolds sports film from the 70s, which of course got a remake in 2005 with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Where's the 4K of that? People are
why didn't they just make that a double feature with this one?
I don't know. I don't even know who owns the rights to that. I know there's a Blu-ray that's been around probably since the late 2000s.
Since it came out.
Probably.
But speaking of Blu-rays,
yes.
This is a movie that has a Blu-ray, but is getting another Blu-ray through Kino. So I guess it confirms that maybe the other label's going to make a 4K of it. Kind of the opposite situation of the story you just told a minute ago. So the next film we're going to talk about is coming out May 23rd. My Man Godfrey. And so, yeah, I mean, My Man Godfrey came out from Criterion, of course, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And now
this is the remake.
Is this the remake?
Yeah, this is the
Never
remake
mind.
From 1957.
Why didn't you say something earlier?
That we talked about when it was announced a while ago, because I remember you asking me, how does it compare with the original?
Yeah.
And I remember kind of comparing the two and the differences and similarities. This stars David Niven in the title role, whereas the original starred William Powell in the title role.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting how they were doing, in the 1950s. And it's just, I I'm glad that they're putting this out just for comparison's sake. I don't think this is one I have to rush out to buy. And I love David Niven, but just the
Yeah, yeah.
original holds a very special place for
That
me.
original movie
Kind
is
of
pretty
magical.
amazing. It
Yeah,
is.
by Gregory LaCava, the director. But this is yeah, brand new HD master, brand new audio commentary, and yeah, if you like June Allison and David Niven and kind of want to check this out for comparison's sake, uh, this could be an interesting thing for you. But the next film is another film that actually this got announced back in July of last year, and we're finally getting details on it just now. Coming May 23rd on Blu-ray and DVD is a movie called Joy House that is directed by Rene Clement, who we've been talking about a lot lately because he just seems to be getting a lot of his stuff released and a lot of the stuff that he did with Alain Delon. And this film not only stars Alain Delon, but also stars Jane Fonda as well. This movie came out in 1964, getting a 2K restoration. And this is getting the slipcover treatment if you're into their slipcovers. And this is an interesting film. So Alain Delon plays this guy who's on the run. He's on the run from I think like organized crime people in France, I believe. And he is the movie starts out in that way, and he ends up essentially hiding out as a chauffeur for Jane Fonda and her aunt. But he's hiding out there trying to lay low so that he doesn't get caught by people who are out after him. Because it turns out that he actually had an affair with like the wife of a really powerful organized crime boss or something like that. And now he's kind of had to hide out um because of that. And he ends up kind of getting roped into what's going on with Jane Fonda and her aunt, and it's a little bit sinister stuff going on. There's I don't want to get into it, but there's some murder things afoot and whatnot. So it's like a mystery and it has some red herrings and some zigzags in it in the plot, and I actually really enjoyed the film a lot.
Hmm.
So I do give that a recommendation if that's anything for anyone. Um, so
Cool.
that's Joy House or Le Filine, I think was the French title. But next up is a film that is I was telling Steven before we started recording, it is one of probably the most disappointing films I've ever seen, and the reason being,
What a
look at this
cast.
cast.
Can I say it? Can I say it? Because it's
Yes, you can say it.
Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson, Robert Mitchum, Tony Curtis. I mean, Janine Moreau. Is that how you say her name?
Yes.
Donald Pleasance, Ray Milland, Dana and God damn it! This is outstanding. Wow. I'm just looking at this for the first time. Wow, how's this movie suck?
It doesn't suck. It's just disappointing because of what I literally just said. Not only does it star just a massive
It's
star-studded
directed by
cast.
Elia Kazan. How's it not good?
It's Elia Kazan's last film. It's based off of the unfinished novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald called The Last Tycoon. It's set in the 1930s. Robert De Niro plays this big-time movie producer who is just kind of he's a mover and a shaker. He's a tycoon and he he basically works himself nonstop in the movie business. And the movie is kind of making, pointing fingers and getting into the themes of the movie making world is kind of cutthroat. It's not glitz and glamour. It's a messed up place with a lot of people doing shady things to get things done to make the movies. And the movie is good in that regard. Anything that has to do with the actual movie making of part of this movie, I think is really good and actually kind of really holds up and is fascinating. And it's things we've seen over and over again that cover the movie making world, whether it be in the 1930s, whether it be whatever decade it is. That stuff is good. There's just a lot of extra stuff in this movie that I think falls really, really flat,
Hmm.
specifically with Robert De Niro's character and like the personal stuff that he's going through. I just found it completely and utterly uninteresting. There's like romantic relationships he's getting in, and some of the line reading, I was shocked by how just dead they were and bland. I that's the one thing that got to me is why is this movie so bland when it's supposed to be so interesting? So it kind of disappointed me in that regard. And there was just moments of the movie where I kept checking the runtime, and I'm like, "Oh my god, there's an hour left in this movie, and it's so slowly paced right now. It's a slog to get through." I just felt like Robert De Niro's character had no energy to him whatsoever at times, and it was just dead bland. Really super disappointing in that regard. But it is an interesting film in the sense that it's Eli Kazan's last film, and it's got an array of actors like you've never seen, and it does have Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro starring in their only film they've ever starred in together.
It's crazy.
The only time they've ever been on screen together is in this movie. And I guess that's also fascinating.
It's also written by the guy that wrote The Servant.
Yes.
Great movie. Wow. It's one of them examples where it doesn't matter how many great people are involved, you can still make a shitty movie.
You can still make an underwhelming movie, and apparently it wasn't a big like critical success at the time. It's probably gotten reappraised over time because of its, like I said, its thematic work when it comes to the movie industry is very, very good.
I'm still gonna check it out,
and it's still worth a watch. I think
I'm gonna check it out. You might just.
I saw it's actually available to stream right now on the Paramount Plus streaming service, because it was a Paramount movie. And I guess this was part of the Paramount deal that Kino made with Paramount a few months now, last year. I don't even know anymore. Time just keeps moving.
We're beyond that now.
But yeah, I think is there anything else from Kino?
Last thing, yeah.
One more box set.
Yeah, last thing is about 10 hours ago from now. It coming in June, we have the second collection coming about I'm not speaking. I can't speak. I was just yawning a second ago, so I'm tired. Audie Murphy, Collection 2. We get 3 films from him. We have 1950s Sierra. We have that film has got Wanda Hendricks in it, Dean Jagger, Burl Ives, Tony Curtis. And then the second film from 1950, we have Kansas Riders. Got Brian DeVelli, Margaretti Chapman, Scott Brady, Tony Curtis again. And then from 1954, we have Destry, which I feel like I've heard that. I feel like I've maybe even seen that film. Maybe no, I'm thinking of Destry Rides Again.
Yeah, I think it's based off of the same character.
Okay. But that's the 3 films in that set. No details about the plots, but
speaking of Destry Rides Again, it's directed by the same guy who directed Destry Rides Again.
Oh wow! What a coinkydink!
What a coincidence! But yeah, this is we've already gotten an Audie Murphy box set number 1.
Yes,
a while ago, and this is kind of I can't remember the last time we've gotten a box set specifically for an actor or actress from Kino. They did a bunch of them.
Yeah, they did a bunch of them back to back. They had Tony Curtis. They got
they had Rock Hudson, Robert Stanwyck. There was an Ida Lupino box set.
Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard. There's 2020 was really the time when a lot of these box sets were coming out.
Ida Lupino had the one.
I have
the
that
one.
set.
Yeah.
This is cool to me. I know we got the Anime Wong box set coming up on the horizon. That's one I'm really excited about. This is the second Audie Murphy box set.
These will be easier for me to gather.
They're super. These are super
the 50
affordable.
film noir ones that I have to still get.
Yeah, even the film noir ones are super affordable as well. They're just affordable. A lot of them, just a lot of them. So that does do it for Kino.
Yes.
I guess we'll move over now to Shout Factory.
Sure.
Shout Factory's got a couple of site exclusive announcements that they had this week. One is a triple feature of like 70s drive-in classics. And the triple feature is TNT Jackson, The Final Come Down starring Billy D. Williams, and then Savage with an exclamation point.
Savage.
I like the kind of the not the title card, but The saying they have over it.
Tagline.
The tagline: "He's more than a man. He's a death machine."
Well, I like the other one for TNT Jackson. It's super shattering, bone blasting. She's a one mama massacre squad.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I know
Yeah, man. These are
these are
all
each getting bonus features. They're all getting 2K scan. The first two are from the original camera negative. The last one's from the interpositive. Yeah, each of them are getting not really special features. Like each of them getting like a radio spot and image gallery, and then like theatrical trailers. So there's nothing here really to write home about. But it is a site exclusive. It's limited to 1,500 copies, and it's a 2-disc set. So 3 movies on 2 discs.
All right, so real quick, TNT Jackson, martial arts expert Diana TNT Jackson is pure dynamite when she takes to the streets of Hong Kong in search of her missing brother and runs afoul of the city's most villainous drug pushers. So that's TNT Jackson.
Cool.
The final come down and not the final countdown. Don't get them confused. Johnny Johnson, Billy D. Williams, is a young man with a promising future, but pushed him too far. You've got a revolution on your hands. So, wow.
Nice.
Savage. James Ilderhart stars as a criminal on the run who finds even more trouble when he is caught between two warring factions in a tropical nation's bloody conflict. Interesting. That one sounds the most interesting. Savage. So yeah, them are the 3 films in the triple features, and then I think we had a couple other ones, right? We had
there was at least one more.
Demon of Paradise.
Yes, Demon of Paradise.
Demon of Paradise. The hunters become the prey when illegal dynamite fishing prematurely ends with the hibernation of a mythological carnivorous lizard man in Demon of Paradise. So wow. That sounds great.
Sounds like somebody saw Piranha and was like, let's take it up a notch.
Yeah, a little bit. That with the Creature of the Black Lagoon kind of thing going. So yeah, and then I think the other thing we have here is we have a box set of the Brave Archer films. You have, I believe, it's a 5-disc set. I believe there's 5 films. We have the Brave Archer. We have Brave Archer 2, Brave Archer 3, the Brave Archer and his mate, and Little Dragon Maiden. Which I'm guessing that's connected to the series.
Yeah, it's the 4th film.
I guess.
And then there's a last film, Little Dragon Maiden.
That's what I said. I said that.
See, I'm like all over the place right now. The Brave. So I did get to see the Brave Archer. I don't even know how to explain this movie. It is. It's a wild film. I can give you the plot synopsis, and that's not even the plot of the movie.
Well, the thing is, I was gonna say, I can say I kind of watched this movie. I had a baby with me at the time, but I was watching it, and I kept finding myself wondering what the hell was going on.
Yeah. I lost track of where this movie was going.
Yeah, I literally couldn't keep up with it because it felt like there was like so many characters, and like one, like who you thought were the good guys get attacked by the other good guys, and then there's the bad guys here. Who am I supposed to be rooting for here? Like I didn't know. It was confusing to me.
So the premise of the general premise is I'm getting this from Letterboxd. Guijing and Yang Kang are the sons of 2 rebels. The rebels are killed by Imperial soldiers, and the boys are rescued by 6 pugilists later. The pugilists agreed to separate the 2 boys, tutor them separately in martial arts, and let them meet again when they have grown up to determine whose abilities are better. Guo becomes a student of the 7 freaks of Jingnan, while Yang Kang becomes the foster son of a Jurchen prince inadvertently. That is generally, like, loosely the premise of this movie.
But the thing is even
it's not.
Even so, it's like that's a lot of damn, like,
there's plot upon plot upon plot of this movie, all built on that, but then also most of it has nothing to do with that. Like, they get to that in the plot of the movie, but they take avenues upon avenues to get there eventually in the end. And then the movie ends, and it's actually like doesn't really have a concrete ending to the point where like the second film has to continue the movie and like continue
Yeah, maybe
the
maybe
plot.
maybe they made them all at the same time. Made it at the same time. Maybe.
I don't know, but I can tell you this is a massive box set. It's a 5 movie box set, which is really cool. The artwork on it looks fantastic. But the movie itself is so chaotic.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah. I don't
you
know that I
got
can.
you gotta really you probably have to watch this movie twice, to be honest.
I mean, honestly, I don't know that I could recommend it right off the bat. But then again, I haven't only seen the first movie, and that's at the same time being very confused. So,
Yes, it's a
you know,
very and I even saw this on IMDb, or even I think I saw this when it was announced, where someone's like, probably one of the most like inane movies, or movie that's just so unhinged and just all over the place, disjointed films that they've ever
yeah,
seen. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I can understand that now after seeing it.
yeah.
And that's just the first movie. I can't really speak to the quality of the rest of the films, but I think this was a Shaw Brothers film. I think this was a Shaw Brothers
It's the
film.
Shaw Brothers film. Yeah,
So
yep,
so this is continuing the trend of Shout Factory getting into putting out Golden Harvest films, putting out Shaw Brothers films, putting out films, from the Asian market, or the Asian entertainment, or the Asian film world of the 1970s. Kind of just picking up that mantle here that 88 Films is doing, that um, Arrow is doing, and that Eureka is doing as well. It seems like everybody's jumping in on this game, and just jumping in on the game over here. I mean, that that seems to be the case. They're
yeah.
putting out just tons of stuff that's already gotten releases, and these are kind of just re-releases. But I don't think anyone's put out the Archer films yet.
Not that
Um,
I'm aware of. So maybe somebody will, but
so I guess they kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Yeah, because oh no, I think I just lied. So the Brave Archer did get an 88 Films Blu-ray release in 2017, but it's out of print. It was part of the Asia collection, number 13, but but like I said, it's out of print. So if you didn't
okay.
get that, I guess you can get this set. Um, Speaking of 88 films, they are putting out a release of one of the Vinegar Syndrome films that we're going to talk about a little later on, A Blade in the Dark, which is getting a 4K release from them in the UK, but a 4K release here by Vinegar Syndrome. Very confusing, but they decided to announce that at the same time that Vinegar Syndrome put out their titles. So I thought that was interesting to mention, since 88 it came up in the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that seems to there seems to be the ability to obviously have 4Ks in both markets, even if it's the same movie. So
Yep, who owns the rights where, essentially.
so, but yeah, let's move over to, how about we talk real quickly about this is a Paramount Presents release coming out for Jerry Lewis's The Nutty Professor.
Yes.
Which, no details really yet on this, but just that it's getting a 4K, a 60th anniversary 4K. And, I've never seen this Nutty Professor film, but most people that tell me about it typically are either one thing or they're either they like it but or some people think it's just ridiculous. They don't like it. I mean, yeah, I guess you have to be a Jerry Lewis fan. It does work that apparently that Jekyll and Hyde kind of angle with this version. Have you seen it?
I maybe saw this when I was very young, because, you know, we did get, the Nutty Professor
Yeah, with Eddie Murphy in
by
the
by
90s.
Eddie Murphy in the 90s, and then but that's a quasi remake of the one with Jerry Lewis.
Yeah,
And I remember that this movie actually got a super deluxe release by Warner Brothers, a 50th anniversary, their ultimate collector's large box that they box set version that they did with like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. They did it with Casablanca. They did it with Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they did it for the Nutty Professor back in 2014, and I remember that. I remember when that came out. I remember being on shelves. I remember seeing it. It is still technically in print. You can, but basically, I mean, you can get it. You can get it if you want it, or you can wait for this release. The only information we've actually gotten from this is that uh, it's supposed to come out May 30th, and Target.com had it on their website. That's it. We know nothing else concrete about this release. We don't know the special features. We don't know what it's going to look like. Other than it's a 4K.
Well, we know what at least it looks like it does have a cover here. We know what it's going to look like.
That's just the movie poster cover.
I know.
That's
I know. Well, it does have Paramount Presents on it.
Yeah,
on the
but you can
logos
slap
in the
that
corner.
on there.
That's the logos in the corner, so I'm assuming this is what it's going to look like.
Photoshopped.
It may be. It might. Who knows? But that's it. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. No real details, like I said. But moving on, we do have Flicker Alley. It's got a new restoration of the Eric von Stroheim Foolish Wives is getting a Blu-ray. This is their 82nd release. It looks like. Their Flicker Alley is not one that does a lot of releases. You get something every once in a while, but typically really, really good restorations. They're typically really digging deep. They're getting things that are really hard to find. One. Yeah, and this looks like a deep one. Foolish Wives.
This came out. This is a 1922 silent film. The movie runs like 2 hours and 20 minutes, so it's one of those longer ones. It's coming out June 13th. Yeah, Eric von Stroheim is kind of a legendary filmmaker. He directed several early, very important films. Very important films during the silent era. Specifically, he directed Greed, which is one from 1924. I think that's the only. Yeah, not a lot of his stuff has gotten Blu-ray releases at all. Unfortunately, Greed is
one I hear people really want.
Greed hasn't even gotten one yet.
Yeah.
The Great Gobbo, which I think was also put out by Kino. Put out by Kino back in 2021. This is something that's probably near and dear to my heart because of being the silent era, and we just don't get a lot of that. He was also an actor as well. He was in a lot of films like Sunset Boulevard. He played the butler in Sunset Boulevard to Gloria Swanson's character. He was also, I believe, in The Grand Illusion, and he was in Five Graves to Cairo, and I can't remember what else he was in, but yeah, he was just a legendary person. So I'm all in.
Yeah,
I'm all in on this.
Cool.
So this is great. I love Flicker Alley's work.
Well, yeah, I love any label that's delving deep on the silent films. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of labels that really delve into silent films as often. I mean, obviously, there's very little to mine. A lot of it's lost. So labels like Kino and Flicker Alley are kind of leading the charge. I think maybe Eureka is another one. Eureka goes after some silent films as well.
Right.
But
they just put out. Well, they put out like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think was a silent film. Of course, they put out Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Put out
Flicker Alley has put out. They've worked a lot with the Film Noir Foundation, the Eddie Muller company.
Yeah,
put out several films that are kind of more underground film noir titles and whatnot. So I got to get a lot of their stuff. Their stuff is not cheap. Like you're gonna end up paying at least $30 to $40 per title every single time. They never really go on sale because they don't make a lot of copies of them. So keep that in mind. But moving on from there, Stephen, where does one want to venture to now?
Last before the Vinegar Syndrome stuff, we have Synapse has a release.
Yes.
McBrain.
McBain.
I keep calling
starring.
it McBrain.
Yeah, just let it roll.
It's because I'm looking at the Synapse logo and it's like a brain. And
Oh
then
yeah, I didn't think of that.
then I'm saying the name of the title and I'm thinking brain.
So this is coming out July 11th. And this movie came out like 1990, 1991. It's one of those that has more than one like official year date or whatnot. And McBain stars Christopher Walken, the one and only. And
there is no other.
There is no other. And the premise, and this film was presented by or put out by Troma. But I don't know if it's considered a Troma film. I don't think it was made by them. Maybe just distributed by them or presented by them, whatever the technical case may be. So the premise of this film is such. The film starts off, I think, towards the end of the Vietnam War or the end of the Vietnam War, where some soldiers decide that they're going to rescue this POW basically on their way out of Vietnam. And the soldier ends up being Christopher Walken. So they rescue him. And then lo and behold, years and years later, basically like 20 or so years later, they one of the guys who rescued Christopher Walken is leading an uprising in Colombia to try to take over the government, kind of a coup, if you will, a rebellion, and he ends up getting killed. But his daughter, who is kind of taking up now leading the rebellion, decides to go to the United States to enlist the help of one and only Christopher Walken to kind of fulfill her dad's goals of taking over and also getting revenge as well. So Christopher Walken gets his band of soldiers together from Vietnam, his old war buddies, and they decide to go down to Colombia and kick some ass. And that's the movie.
Cool.
And it sounds cool on paper until you watch the movie and you're like, this should have been better. This really should have been better. A lot of the movie is spent just getting to Colombia. And then once you get there, that's when things actually do kick into gear. And it becomes like Christopher Walken and his buddies playing Commando, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie in Colombia. And like, that's fun and entertaining. But there's a whole like flying airplane sequence that takes way too long of them flying down to Colombia. And then there's like things they have to do before they get there. That's kind of also not really that interesting and it kind of ridiculous. But Christopher Walken just chewing up the scenery is fun enough to give it a watch. I think this was on Tubi, if memory serves. It sounds like something that would be on Tubi if it's not, because it is that much fun. It's kind of Nam-exploitation, but kind of not because it doesn't take place in Nam, but it has Vietnam veterans in it. But yeah, that's McBain. Movie I didn't know existed until I had to watch it for this. Yeah, it is on Tubi, by the way. It's on Tubi, it's on Pluto. Yeah, it's on Plex. So basically free streaming sites with ads.
It's a free for all. Awesome. Well, that's one on my. I think that sounds like a nice Sunday afternoon movie. But let's get on to our last slate of films. Vinegar Syndrome, as we said at the beginning, has got a pre-order up for their halfway to Black Friday sale, which has got a few of their titles revealed. They still have some other titles they have to reveal, and of course, when the sale comes, there will be more discounts on things. But right now, it's just kind of a slightly discounted rate for these new titles that were just announced. So the announcement we have I believe 3 single titles and then a box set. So the big one that we're starting with here is a 4K of the kind of cult classic film Showgirls, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Yeah.
Keep in mind this is their newest VSU title.
Yeah,
their Vinegar Syndrome Ultra title. So this is going right next to Beastmaster and Six String Samurai and stuff like that.
Roadhouse.
Yeah. So this was one that I think caught people like, wow, I can't believe they're doing this. Well, yeah, here we are. Yeah, this is going right next to Cloak and Dagger and Sidekicks as well. So yeah, this is going to be. I'm curious what the extras package is going to be on this because I don't think they've announced any extras yet.
No, nothing detailed really yet. Just that we're getting a 40-page perfect bound book, It says complete extras will be announced. Yeah, 4K presentation. So yeah, I mean, nothing really to report in that section, but yeah, I mean, I think it's I think me and both Andrew are kind of on the same page. We both saw this film a long time ago, so we don't have great memories of this movie, but we know that it's one of the movies that people consider to be so bad it's good. I'm a big Paul Verhoeven fan. I love his films, so it's kind of one of them things where even if I don't love the movie anyway, I want it just to kind of have all his movies because I just think he's one of them filmmakers that pushes the boundaries. And this isn't really any different. This movie pushes boundaries as well. It just maybe didn't necessarily maybe translate the way he maybe wanted it to. I don't know. Maybe it did. Maybe we'll find out in some features on this disc.
Yeah, this is a film that is notoriously bad. It's a notoriously ridiculously over the top, like, bad type of movie, and the premise of it is essentially all about Eve, but in the world of erotic dancing, stripping, if you will. And, a young ingenue comes to town and kind of takes the spotlight from the veteran who has been doing it for years, and complications ensue. I remember this film also starring Gina Gershon, Elizabeth Berkley, Kyle MacLachlan is in the film as well. And yeah, this movie's notorious. So many people, even if you haven't seen the movie, you've heard the title.
You've heard,
It's just it's just that much. It has been on Blu-ray quite a few times. They've just been reissuing the same disc from like 2010. It was put out by MGM back in 2010 with a 15th anniversary sensational edition, which was a Blu-ray DVD combo. That edition is long out of print because they've re-released it so many times in different packaging, just the same disc. They've re-released it on DVD so many times in various forms with collector's editions and big box set frills editions and whatnot. When it comes to special features, it looks like it's had an audio commentary and then a couple of features after that. Whether they port these over to this edition remains to be seen. It would be nice to just kind of have everything, but if they don't and they just have a whole bunch of new exclusive features, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. But yeah, this is Showgirls getting a 4K UHD release. I honestly have a Paul Verhoeven section, and I don't have any version of Showgirls in it. But I do own like 3 versions of RoboCop, if that counts for anything.
Sure.
I've always liked Paul Verhoeven. Obviously RoboCop, Total Recall. What are some other ones? Did he direct?
Didn't he do that movie called Black Book?
It's
like a historical epic kind of movie.
Yes, he did. Holy, what a pull there, Steven.
I know, right?
He also
I believe,
did
I was going to say, I believe that movie's been released a couple times. It's got a UK release, I think, through 101 Films, maybe. But I think it's got a release in America as well.
I'm ready to look it up.
You can, but I mean,
it does have a Blu-ray release here that was put out actually when the movie came out back in 2007. Goodness gracious. It does have a UK release. Looks like, is that 101? Yes, it is. It's 101.
Damn,
one of their limited edition number 4, actually.
Damn, I'm good.
Very good. Very good. But Paul Verhoeven, for me, yeah, his 80s work, I think, is considered some of his most notorious.
Definitely.
The Hitchhiker. Oh, he did the Hitchhiker TV series. He directed, I'm pretty sure, the pilot of that. But he did the movie RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, which didn't that just get like a super deluxe edition?
I believe Studio Canal did it.
Yeah, Studio Canal did that, and then Showgirls, Starship Troopers. That's the one that he also did.
That's another big one. Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Hollow Man?
Yeah, I own that. I have the 88 Films box of that has that.
Nice.
The
with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. It's kind of a dirty
movie. Based
movie.
Off of a comic book, actually.
Yes, I think so.
Maybe. I know I could
maybe,
but I don't think. I think I'm just making that up.
Maybe.
But I remember when that movie came out. I remember seeing the trailers for that, and just like, Kevin Bacon just going invisible and then doing mischievous shit.
Yeah.
Because like, what would you? It's basically the Invisible Man It's Paul Verhoeven's version of The Invisible Man.
Essentially, yeah.
But yeah, that's Showgirls. But we've got a couple of other titles here. And we've got A Blade in the Dark, like I said, that's getting a 4K release from 88 Films, as well as here. Nothing in the way of special features yet. But I can tell you this movie is the movie's okay. It's not great. It is a movie that is directed by Lamberto Bava. It's a giallo film. It's kind of a late giallo film. Yeah, I I need to remember the premise of this movie. I watched it earlier this week, and my mind is going blank. Don't ask me why.
It says when
Yes,
then
save
turning
me.
to I can't speak, to Italy. We're excited to present blah blah blah, 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 blah. Okay, this doesn't have what I thought it had. Okay, you can
No,
read
no.
what
A
you have.
killer stalks a composer staying at a posh Tuscany villa while writing the score to a horror film which has an incriminating clue to the killer's identity. Yes,
Ooh,
that is this
it
movie.
sounds
I'm
good.
sorry, a lot of these slashers end up just kind of all meshing together, especially when you watch so many of them back to back. It just happens. So yes, there's this guy who's working on a movie score for a horror film, and he's staying at like this relatively secluded villa in order to do his work and get his work done. But what ends up happening is a bunch of murders start happening, and he becomes kind of like obsessed with what's going on. Not obsessed, but it's like he finds bloodstains here, bloodstains there. He finds like you know certain items around that have blood on them, and he's like, "What the hell is going on?" And the movie, slowly reveals who is doing the killing. What's kind of cool is it's got that effect of when we see these murders happening, it's the POV effect where we're seeing the murders being done through the killer's eyes, a la Peeping Tom, which we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. Even the opening of Halloween has the POV murder, and then Psycho, you get a little bit of POV action in the shower scene, and all the murders are done through that lens, and all you hear is like the killer breathing as it's walking, and making like kind of absurd noises. So this isn't a bad movie. I think I'm gonna take that back. It's just it's a longer film, and I think the movie's a little bit too long. And when you get to the end, it, when the killer is revealed, it's kind of predictable. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense this entire time. But yeah, it's a kind of a late stage giallo film directed by Lamberto Bava. So it's worth it for that. I like the mood of it, and I like the tone of it. I like all of that stuff in it, but the movie does go on for a little bit too long, specifically because we just see the same murders happening over and over again. The movie's an hour and 48 minutes, and I don't think it needs to be that long, to
Hmm.
be honest. But the other movie, which I think Steven and I both got to see, is a movie that I think both of us kind of liked a little bit.
Yeah.
The Boogeyman.
Yeah.
Not the first title we've ever seen with
No.
when it comes to having those words in
A
it.
lot, lot
The
of, lot of,
concept of
lot
the
of.
Boogeyman.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's even other movies called The Boogeyman that
Literally,
came
yeah.
out.
When you look it up, you gotta find the right one.
Yeah. They got the dude from Seventh Heaven in the newer ones.
Oh,
the
yeah.
the oldest brother.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. What was that? Barry wasn't his
Don't
name
ask me.
Barry
Don't ask
Keegan?
me.
Oh, man, if I nail this one.
God damn. If you get this one, then we got to just end the show.
Oh, no, not Barry Keegan. What was his
Okay,
name?
thank God. We got to finish the show.
We gotta finish the show now. Oh, man. But talk about the Boogeyman.
Well, the Boogeyman is let me make sure I get the right information here because I'm
Oh,
like
it
on
was
a
his
whole.
name was Barry Watson. I got the first name.
You got the first name, man. That's close. I almost we have to half end the show now. But this is one of the video nasties. It's kind of one of the key video nasties of the time, and it's from 1980, and it's kind of missed out on an American edition for a while, but it's finally making its way here with the 4K. So of course it evades America and then just goes straight to 4K. So the film, if I can find a nice description here, because it says I'm not finding a good description. Do you have a description of this
I
movie?
mean,
I mean, I could describe it the way I
I
saw
can make
it.
one up.
I mean, I could make up one too, but it'd be better if we got a nice description of it.
It would be nice, of course. Of course, IMDb's formatting now is absolutely atrocious, and I want to bring that up every single time.
Well, I'm even on the Vinegar Syndrome page here, and I'm not
Well, they don't
seeing a
really give us
description.
much to go with.
Yeah.
But the boogeyman. So what happens is, as most things go with these slasher films, there's some childhood trauma going on here. So when this brother and sister sibling pair are children, their mother is of course extremely neglectful and has a terrible boyfriend. And one night, basically, the brother, after being abused by said boyfriend, decides to murder him.
Yeah.
And they murder him in front of this large mirror that's in the bedroom. And what happens,
as many people had over their beds in the
or
80s.
in their bedroom. I know my parents did. They have a large vanity, and then above the vanity would be an attached mirror just over the whole thing. And yeah, so I don't know if that was a big thing that people had.
It was a
Who knows?
thing back in the day. Yeah.
But what happens is the evil spirit of this evil boyfriend of the mother gets trapped in this mirror. And then when the children grow up, it somehow gets released and starts doing murderous stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of the basic premise without giving it away. It's an odd movie filled with kind of odd people in it. The young girl grows up and she's kind of having these nightmares about visions, about things that happened, about her mother's boyfriend coming back from the dead and murdering her and all kinds of stuff. Her brother is also kind of traumatized by the events of his childhood, and he doesn't speak at all, and he's also kind of violent as well. They don't
Yeah, I was gonna
really
say
explain that much.
in a sense, they kind of set the movie up like he's gonna be the murderous one.
He may be this murderer, but there's
Really,
supernatural things about.
Yeah, it really kind of takes a swerve, and so
Yeah,
it's
a third act swerve, which I really liked. It went
yeah,
bonkers. It went like Amityville horror-ish. It
yeah,
went supernatural in the third act, like the last 20 minutes of the movie, and I was like, this is interesting.
yeah.
Where was this the entire movie? I really kind of wish that. And I guess the whole idea is that this entity is, quote unquote, the boogeyman. It's an evil force that needs to be dealt with. Um, yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's not terrible.
It's solid, and that obviously this 4K transfer is going to probably look way better than what we watched.
Which
And
I think,
so
did you end up watching it on YouTube? I think that's where I think
that's
that's
where
where
I
I saw
watched
it.
it. I think so, YouTube or something like that. But it's it's definitely got some good and interesting kills in the film. And yeah, I mean it's definitely got like I've heard people say that it's maybe a little bit of an influence on John Carpenter's Halloween. It's got some of them like point of
Well,
view
it
kind of.
came out after Halloween. That's the one thing.
Well, that's I thought I heard somebody say something that
Yeah,
it was an influence on. Maybe I'm thinking of
maybe it's the
something else.
reversed.
Maybe an
Maybe Halloween was
influence.
an influence
Maybe
on
that's
this.
what I heard, and my dyslexia is coming in. But maybe that's what I heard. But because it does have some of them kind of like point of view type of things going on, and then also the brother who's traumatized kind of has this like quietness, Michael Myers quietness to him. Yeah.
Quiet type of villainy in him. Yeah, the movie is, the movie is super low budget. The acting's not great, but you don't really watch this movie for any great acting or dialogue. You watch it for 80s slasher kills,
It's got atmosphere. It's
stuff
got
like that.
kills. Yeah. I mean, it's
Out of all of the lower budget 80s slashers, this one is not the worst I've
not
seen
the worst I've
put out
seen.
by
No.
Vinegar Syndrome
It's not
or
bad. Not that
Severin
bad.
or whomever.
Yeah.
But there is but moving on from there is a third release here that they announced, and um it's a box set for 3
Spanish box
movies.
set. Yeah. Yeah. We got Spanish, but it's Village of the Damned, 3 horrors from Spain. And it collects 3 films. We got Pedro
Olaus.
Aloya's the Forest of the Wolf from 1970. We also have from 1975 The Sky is Falling. which is also called Bloodbath, apparently.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that in a second.
Yeah, and this stars Dennis Hopper and Carol Baker, so that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
don't get your hopes up.
I know,
Don't get your hopes up.
I know. And then the last one is from 1976, and it's called Beatrix.
Beatrice?
Beatrix. Okay. A nasty tale of supernatural revenge, which is also makes it to the world of Blu-ray for the first time. Okay. Ruin Our Lives. Tell us why the Carol Baker and Dennis
these
Hopper
are all
movies
getting.
good.
So first of all 3 have been exclusively scanned and restored in 4K by Vinegar Syndrome from their original negatives, which is shocking to me, and come complete with several newly recorded and archival extras. Yet again, we don't know any of these extras what they will be. So do you want me to start with The Sky Is Falling, or do you want me to talk about The Forest of the Wolf?
Well, to not confuse people, these movies are not in 4K.
No, but they're getting
Blu-rays.
4K scanned. The original camera negatives.
Okay, I got you. I'm just making sure that was clear. You start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, let's go in order. I only got to see 2 out of 3 of these. I did find Beatrice actually to watch, but after watching the first 2, I couldn't do it anymore. The Wolf. So The Forest of the Wolf, or El Bosque del Lobo, from 1970. Is an interesting movie because it's more of a drama than I would say a horror film. And at least that's the way I read it. I don't know if I misread it wrong or anything like that. There is murder in it. There is, I guess murder is horrific in that regard, but the film is more about the idea of, like rumor and speculation can be like truly horrific. So Benito, I think this is based on a true story actually. Benito Frere, a peddler in a small village in northern Spain, suffers from epileptic seizures, and rumors start to spread that he may be a werewolf and responsible for a series of killings. The local abbot is called upon to form a team to investigate in an effort to halt the harrowing murders. That's the premise from Letterboxd, and that's kind of essentially true. But it brings up this idea that back in this time frame, people having epilepsy or having seizures, they wouldn't know how to interpret that. They would think that they are possessed by a demon or possessed by the devil, and they would and they would think things like that. So they kind of assume that that's the case, that this guy is a werewolf, he's possessed by a demon, so they've got to stop doing it. But unfortunately, he's almost like a victim of those circumstances, but he also may actually be committing murders. I gotta say this is spoilerish a little bit. He starts having seizures, and then he starts strangling people while having a seizure. And part of me is like, that's usually not the that's not the reaction one has when they're having a seizure. That's not a byproduct of that. Yeah. So I'm watching it. I'm like, that doesn't make quite a lot of sense. So in a way, it is about kind of, kind of victimizing without knowing the true context of the situation. But also, yeah, this guy may in fact also be a murderer too. But is he a murderer because of this condition, or is he a murderer because he's a murderer? It plays around in that area, and the film is more, like I said, more of a slow moving drama than I think it is a horror film, and so it plays out kind of in that regard. Yeah, and it's also called The Unseen Woods in another title. But moving on to the second film, which actually had me like very interested just because of the name recognition, Silvio Narazano's The Sky Is Falling, or La Flores del Vicio, or Bloodbath, which is what it was called here in the United States. We talked earlier about how Archer, what was it called? The Archer. What was the first
Brave
Archer
film? The Brave Archer.
Brave Archer. We thought that movie was unhinged and kind of all over the place. Not even close to what this film is.
Okay.
This film is pure and utter I would also say nothingness because it really is. The movie follows um several people, including Dennis Hopper, including Carol Baker, and then there are some other characters in the film as well. And but they're not really doing anything. They're just kind of self imploding, victims of just their own lives. Uh, uh, Dennis Hopper plays a drug addict, alcoholic who is just doing drugs and alcohol and sleeping with women in the south of Spain, in some small Spanish village. Carol Baker is kind of a washed up actress who believes that she is going to get a call from Hollywood at any point and she's going to make a comeback. And that's not the case. It's just
So is
it,
this a documentary or is this?
ironically it was done at the time where Dennis Hopper was doing lots of drugs and consuming alcohol, basically his apocalypse now era of life. And these people are just like hopeless nothingness. And there's no plot to the movie. There's no character stuff going on. It's just random scenes of people doing random things. There are other characters in the film where, um, yeah, that are like that are just doing stuff. I'm trying to find the character list. I had a description of it, and now I can't find it. Um, where it's just like there are other characters. There's like a gay character who just goes around and just lives like just kind of a frolicking, meaningless life. There's like a captain, like a former military captain or something like that, who's also doing it as well. It's just a bunch of people doing nothing. The movie has no plot. It's so unhinged. To the point where I'm like, I don't know if this is a brilliant avant-garde experimental piece or if it's just random nothingness. Uh, Baffling film, truly baffling film. Why it's called Bloodbath, I have no idea. There's not like murders happening. It's not a slasher film. Um, the Sky is Falling, I think, is a more appropriate title because these people lives are literally just falling apart, as if like their lives are ending, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a great film, so don't get your hopes up of anything anything really great about it. Um,
Thanks.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
yeah, and Dennis Hopper's character's name is Chicken. Just thought that was funny.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
Chicken, a desperate hippie junkie living in a small Spanish village, is finding it difficult to separate fantasy and reality. This isn't helpful. This isn't helped by villagers practicing magic and child sacrifice or his involvement with a group of boozy expatriates lost in their own dreams. Um, yeah, that's the premise that I was kind of looking for. Yeah, he's having like nightmarish visions because he's on all kinds of drugs. He's having visions of like his past life or visions of like his early life, and then it's just a bunch of expatriates doing nothing. Yeah,
Hmm.
not helpful, not helpful at all.
Okay. Well,
Um, but Beatrice, I didn't actually get to watch, so I don't have much to say about that. Um, yeah,
okay. Well, as we said, that there's more to be announced for this sale, so be ready for that coming soon. I think by the end of May, we when we get closer to the sale, we'll get the other titles, and then of course this coming weekend we'll get more partner label stuff. So you'll hear that on the next episode. Us talk about a big slate of partner labels. So yeah. Other than that, please of course like this episode wherever you're listening to it. Please share it around for us. Give us a rating on any podcast platform that you're listening to it on. That'd be great. And then, of course, please go to the YouTube channel. Follow us there. We do provide a lot of these interviews in a video form. So please go over there and watch and share that around for us, please. And with anything else, Andrew, please just tell us where you can be found.
you can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels, where, like Steven said, we are putting up like clips of the interview portions of all these episodes because it's kind of nice to see us interact with our guests. And we've
Yeah.
got plenty of them upcoming.
Oh, yeah,
Steven is a
dude.
scheduling machine.
I'm killing my life
Mm,
by making sure that we never do anything other than interview people again.
ever again.
Yeah. But you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me at all the other Chasing Labels stuff, whether it be our Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on my Letterboxd at Stephen Billings. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.